The old Egyptian village restaurant was a little difficult to find. It was somewhere inside the labyrinth of narrow roads, so Mohammed, the owner, drove his motorcycle out to personally escort us to the front door. When we arrived, we were warmly greeted by Mohammed's brother, who was waiting to welcome us in. He brought us into a shady courtyard with tables on one side, a clay oven in one corner, and a long row of cushioned seating along the back. We felt like we had been invited into the courtyard of a traditional Egyptian home. And indeed, this was Mohammed's family home. Mohammed introduced his brothers and extended family who worked in the restaurant. He referred to all of them as his brothers. Mohammed's vision for the restaurant is to give visitors an authentic Egyptian experience with real Egyptians in an actual family home, learning to prepare fresh and healthy authentic Egyptian food. Most tourists come to Egypt to learn about the ancient history and visit the archaeological sites and museums. Apart from the hotel staff, the local guides, and the shop vendors, I wonder how many Egyptians a typical tourist will actually encounter. During our time in Egypt, there were certain practices that my family found difficult to get used to. In particular, the overt expectation and demand for tips was something that made my family oftentimes feel uncomfortable. Everybody, it seemed, demanded tips for doing anything and everything. What we thought were acts of hospitality or kindness turned out to be ways to demand a tip. I don't know if it's part of the culture or habit that developed in interactions with tourists. I believe that Egyptians are hospitable, kind, and generous people, and we felt that sincerity from Mohammed and his family. As the kids explored the courtyard, Mohammed served us water in handmade clay bottles that naturally sweat. Leo used a larger version of this kind of clay water pot when he lived in Mali. It's a natural way to keep water cool because the clay is naturally porous and the water continuously evaporates through the tiny holes in the clay. Through the evaporation process, heat is lost from the water inside the pot, lowering the temperature of the water. Mohammed's brother pulled some piping hot sweet potatoes out of the oven. I could tell they were sweet because the flesh was soft with natural sticky syrup dripping and oozing out from cracks in the skin. Mohammed then offered us karkare, or hibiscus tea. The bright red drink is made from the hibiscus flower that's grown right in their garden. It has a naturally tart flavor and can be enjoyed cold or hot. It's believed to have many health benefits like lowering blood pressure, promoting liver health, and stabilizing liver function due to its natural antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. When Leo lived in Mali, he drank hibiscus tea every day, and he turned it into Kool-Aid by adding sugar. Before it was time to begin cooking lunch, Mohammed showed us the old-fashioned hand-operated stone grinding mill. In the olden days, wheat was placed between the two grinding stones to produce flour that could be used for baking bread. In modern times, families typically just buy flour if they'll bake their own bread or buy ready-to-eat pita. Now it was time to begin cooking lunch. Mohammed's brother, who had been keeping the oven hot with small twigs, taught us how to bake a kind of Egyptian flatbread. The only ingredients we used were flour, water, and salt. This bread was different from the pita that we baked in Fayum because it was rolled out to a large size and folded over many times to produce a layered effect. This was supposed to make the bread less tough. We made one plain version of the bread and another buttered version, for which we used melted fresh butter that was just made that morning. While Amber and Ellen were busy making the bread, Rand and Dean were recruited to help out in the kitchen. All of the vegetables were fresh from Mohammed's family farm. He emphasized the importance of eating fresh vegetables and meat instead of packaged or processed food. He believes that home cooking is always superior, both health and taste-wise, to eating out. I tend to agree with him. Rand helped cut all of the fresh veggies and herbs that were needed for the dishes and prepared two kinds of tagine, beef and vegetable, on the simple gas burners. Dean was tasked with preparing the Egyptian salad with tomatoes, cucumbers, bell peppers, and herbs, and baba ganoush by combining the eggplants that were baked in the clay oven with tahina, garlic, and herbs. In addition to the meze and beef and vegetable tagines, we had several meat dishes: chicken grilled over charcoal, stuffed pigeons, and stuffed chicken. At one point, the wife of one of the relatives came to the courtyard with her newborn baby to find her husband. It felt like a blessing to see the new mother and her 20-day-old baby. Every time I see a baby, I love looking at it and try hard to remember what it felt like to be the mother of a tiny new life. As we were busy preparing the food, the bread baker's children came home from school. He has 2 daughters and a son. They were curious about us, as our children were curious about them. They looked at each other and probably would have played together if there was a bit more time. The food was ready, so all of the delicious food that we had prepared together was brought to the table. It was a table of bounty, of cooperation, and a celebration of family. After we stuffed our bellies, we still had many boxes of leftovers to bring home. I could see that Mohammed had a vision to build something sincere and good that is rooted in the Egyptian culture. Spending time with Mohammed and his extended family and seeing how a local Luxor family lived and made a living was a refreshing departure from the commercial tourist track. It was a good reminder that the legacy of a civilization is shaped by many individuals with goals and dreams of their own.